The Giants have some true stars on their pitching staff in Logan Webb at the front of that rotation, Camilo Doval in the back end of that bullpen. They've also got an all-star in Alex Cobb. But after that, there's a lot of inconsistency. There's some disappointing free agent signings. So does it all add up to a pitching staff that's going to help the Giants get to October and beyond? Or is it going to be their downfall?
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, and I'm a lifelong fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. So check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. Coming up on today's show, as promised in previous days, we're going to get into the Giants pitching staff performance in the first half and also kind of looking ahead to the trade deadline and the second half. And just kind of jumping right in, I want to talk about the starting rotation, and this is where it gets a little weird if you're a San Francisco Giants fan, because their starting rotation is non-traditional, and really they only have a couple of guys who have firmly cemented roles in that starting rotation, and that's Logan Webb and Alex Cobb. And like I said, you've got some star power at the top. I think Logan Webb, he keeps getting snubbed from all-star games, but I think by now the league and fans are aware of Logan Webb, and ultimately that doesn't even really matter. It's about the performance, and the performance, Logan Webb is having another Logan Webb season, and it just looks all the better that they signed this guy to a 5-year extension prior to the season, meaning 5 years after this year. So at least 5.5 more years of Logan Webb in San Francisco. He's 26 years old. Just, it's amazing, the consistency. 2021, 3.03 ERA, 2022, 2.90, and so far this year, 3.14. Offense is a little bit up this year, so all of those 3 years, he's actually been about 26 to 27% above average at run prevention, because the league average changes a little bit from year to year. And so, yeah, just excellent stuff from Logan Webb. He leads the major leagues in innings, which is very significant for this Giants team that hasn't gotten a lot of length out of its starting pitchers. I mean, with all the bullpen games that they've done, and we'll discuss that later, Logan Webb being able to provide that stability and to just consistently go deep into games. 126 innings already for Logan Webb in his 19 starts. He's also one of the top ground ball pitchers in the game. I think we know that by now. 60.3% ground ball rate is going to be one of the best in the major leagues. I really want to let you know where that ranks. It's going to be top 3. I just promise you. Oh, no, wait. Yeah, I couldn't find him because I was looking like number 3. He's number 1. He's number 1 in the major leagues in ground ball rate at 60.3%. And oh, by the way, Alex Cobb doesn't qualify. Let's sort by minimum 100 innings pitched. Alex Cobb doesn't have 100 innings. Let's sort by a minimum of 80 innings pitched. And Alex Cobb is going to probably also be top 3. Yeah, he's number 3. Logan Webb's still number 1 when we set that minimum a little bit lower. Marcus Stroman, by the way, number 2. So if you want to talk about the trade deadline and think about that, I don't know, maybe there's a case to be made that you want to diversify a little bit in your starting rotation, but imagine having the 3 top ground ball pitchers in the game in one starting rotation. That would sure be interesting. They have a type, and Logan Webb and Alex Cobb kind of both cut from the same cloth. And so, yeah, the number 2 starter for the Giants, clearly Alex Cobb, 35 years old, makes his first All-Star team, 2.91 ERA in the first half. He did miss like a start or two, so he's made 16 starts, 89 and 2/3 innings. By the way, for Webb, a rebound in the strikeout rate, 26.5% in 2021, and then it fell to 20.7% in 2022, but back up to 25.3% in 2023. And he's getting even better. He was already good at preventing walks, but he's been even better this year with a walk rate of just 4.6%. That's going to be one of the best in the major leagues as well. In fact, I'm going to sort just to make sure I'm not omitting a major thing here. Logan Webb, yeah, he's 7th best in Major League Baseball among all pitchers with at least 80 innings with that 4.6% walk rate. Anthony DeSclafani, by the way, 8th best, and Alex Cobb 13th best. And so the Giants as a staff overall, as we will look at, they are good at not walking people. And that's a huge part of what they do, but we'll save that conversation for a little bit later when we're looking at overall numbers. So just Alex Cobb, like I said, I mean, last year, if you're a fan of this show, I was beating the drum all season long that the ERA didn't match up with the type of performance we were seeing from Alex Cobb. And I think this year it more so has. And, you know, better defense behind him. We have not seen, as we discussed the position players for the Giants just the other day, we did like a first half summary of the position player group. And, you know, one of the headlines for me was that the defense not only has been okay, it's been a strength of the Giants in 2023. And that just goes to show you that trends from one year don't always carry over to the next. And that last year did look a little bit fluky from a defense perspective. And also just they've been good this year. And think about all the weird stuff that happened last year with Alex Cobb, Tyler Rogers. It just hasn't really showed up that way in 2023. And so, yeah, I mean, the ERA reflects that, and last year he was kind of just as good, but the results didn't reflect that. But this year they do, and so yes, he's 35 years old. By the way, we mentioned that Webb has 5 years left after this year on his contract. Alex Cobb can be brought back with a $10 million club option that has a $2 million buyout, and so that's just an $8 million decision, which as of right now looks like a no-brainer to bring back Alex Cobb. Who, by the way, one more thing to say about Cobb. He knows Shohei Ohtani, and so this was discussed at the All-Star break. Anyway, he works out with him in the offseason. He was teammates with him when Cobb was in Anaheim, where he was before this season. And so that is something to, you know, all the more reason to pick up that club option and have Alex Cobb advocating for the organization in the offseason when Ohtani is a free agent. But outside of those two, as it says if you're watching on YouTube, it says Webb, Cobb, and everyone else. And everyone else, we're talking about Anthony DeSclafani. We're talking about Alex Wood, Ross Stripling, Sean Manaea. And then you've seen some cameos from guys like Keaton Wynn, and then a bunch of openers. You've seen Ryan Walker used as an opener, John Brebbia used as an opener. John Brebbia has made 8 starts for the Giants. Ryan Walker has made 5 starts for the Giants. Manaea and Stripling combined made 13 starts for the Giants, and those were attempts at having them actually be starters. But Stripling, both of them had major home run problems, each allowing about 2 home runs per 9 innings, and they fell out of the rotation. And Manaea had a 7.54 ERA in the rotation, Stripling 5.93, and Alex Wood 5.06 ERA out of the rotation. DeSclafani 4.44, which is pretty disappointing given he started out the season great, actually. And yeah, so outside of Webb and Cobb, DeSclafani and Wood and Stripling and Manaea each had disappointing first halves. And so what does that mean for the Giants? What have some of these guys done in the bullpen? Because except for DeSclafani, all of those guys have pitched out of the bullpen, where at least in the case of one of them, it's kind of been night and day. And also Stripling is back in that starting rotation. So much more to get to, including the unorthodox use of their pen for the Giants. And we will get into it in just a minute. And before we do, this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. for a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. It's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right, for sure. So next time you need parts and accessories, head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit or your money back. Because just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, wow, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, as promised, we are going to get more into the San Francisco Giants bullpen. I mean, we kind of didn't look at the overall starting pitching numbers, but I think it's deceptive. Like you really have to break it down by openers, because openers are getting counted as starters. And so that's what I mean. The Giants are blurring the lines here of what is a starter and what is a reliever. And I do think that that's kind of something that you'll see more and more of throughout the game, but the Giants kind of on the cutting edge. There are other teams that kind of operate this way. I think the Rays a little bit sometimes operate this way. But yeah, so we'll get more into it in a second. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day, everydayers. On Monday, breaking down this first series of the second half with the Giants in Pittsburgh, and starting out a 3-game series where really they should be winning 2 out of 3 or better. The Giants play the Pirates tonight at 4:05 Pacific, and you can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Giants. Ross Stripling making the start tonight. So, yeah, like when we look at the overall numbers for the starting rotation, the Giants are what are they? 8th in earned run average at 3.98. But again, it's unorthodox. And I mean, it's also like you have some really good performances and you have some really bad performances, and certain guys moved out of that rotation. And so that's kind of what I want to look at next is the bullpen. So of course you do have some traditional relievers out of your pen. And by the way, the Giants bullpen has an overall ERA of 3.80, which is 11th best in baseball. Their fielding independent pitching is 3.73, which is 4th best in Major League Baseball. And so, yes, they have some traditional relievers. And again, it's like you've got some top dogs in Camilo Doval, who just had a phenomenal first half, 2.63 ERA. Strikeout rate is really good at 30. I think it's over 33%. Yeah, 33.5%, striking out over 1 out of every 3 batters that he faces. And I mean, the dude is just kind of an animal, and he showed it at the All-Star game. He was one of the most impressive pitchers. He had all of the top velocities in that game. Nobody else was thrown as hard as he was. And he's just been extremely effective and reliable, and that is nothing to take for granted. I mean, a homegrown reliever who just becomes an all-star closer for you, it's just, when you have bullpen problems and closer problems, that is hugely problematic, but the Giants don't have that right now in Camilo Doval, who's been so reliable. Tranquilo Camilo, totally fitting nickname, and yeah, well-deserved all-star selection for him. And then Tyler Rogers, I think a guy who kind of gets, he's received criticism in the past, and unnecessarily, my goodness. I mean, the dude has a career ERA of 2.79. Can we just end the Tyler Rogers wars right now? It's just insane to me that anybody could really be too critical of this guy who he's just done nothing but prevent runs well since he debuted. And I hate the idea that he's just a gimmick and that, teams only can't hit him when they see him sparingly. Like if you see him 2 days in a row, you're going to suddenly be able to really hit this guy. It's just not true. And Yeah, I mean, he's got a 2.17 ERA, a 2.00 expected ERA. He's really stingy at preventing home runs. In his career, he's only allowed 0.47 home runs per 9 innings. He's allowed 13 home runs in his career in 248 innings. And that's really good. If I were to sort back to all the way when he debuted, that would be one of the best in baseball. And barrels, like hard contact in the air, he's so good at preventing what we call barrels, which is essentially, like I said, hard contact in the air. He's also really good at getting ground balls, career ground ball rate of 56%. Remember, this year Logan Webb leads the major leagues at 60 point something percent. And so, yes, with Doval and with Tyler Rogers, you also had Taylor Rogers having a really rough start to the season, but totally has righted himself and has a 3.30 ERA, a 2.90 expected ERA. Strikeout rate nice and high at 31%. Walk rate is the one thing where it's at 12.2%. His career walk rate is 6.5%. And so walks have kind of cropped up a couple times. That was the big issue early in the season. He had those 4 consecutive walks and then threw his glove and his hat in the trash can. And then since then was just awesome. So I could sort by since then, but he was so bad to start the year. And then he's just kind of been so good ever since. He had a recent outing where he gave up some more walks, but between those two events, which was like 2 months, he was just lights out. And Gabe Kapler often uses them back to back. He'll go to Taylor and then to Tyler, and I just think it's great. And Taylor Rogers is on a 3-year contract here. Tyler Rogers, perhaps not coincidentally, also has 3 years of team control, 2 after 2023. And so they're both on the same kind of timeline in terms of being on the Giants, and obviously they could be extended. But outside of that, you had John Brebbia, who was also kind of a late inning guy, but got hurt, and pretty significantly hurt. And he was really good in terms of, he was really striking people out, and the ERA was actually a little bit high. But yeah, I mean, they've used 20 different relievers, 20, and that is a lot. And it's because so many different guys have pitched. I mean, it's obviously because so many different guys have pitched out of the bullpen, but Ross Stripling has been just as bad out of the pen. My goodness, even worse. 3.29 home runs per 9. He's allowed a lot of homers this season. Jacob Junis has kind of not had the best season with a 4.71 ERA. Tristan Beck, 3.09 ERA out of the bullpen, throwing 19 games, but 46 2/3 innings. So over 2 innings per relief appearance for Tristan Beck. And that's just the beginning of a trend that we're going to see here with Keaton Winn pitching out of the bullpen. 3 games, 12 innings. Alex Wood pitching out of the... And by the way, Keaton Winn out of the pen had a 3.75 ERA. Alex Wood out of the pen, 4 games, 12 2/3 innings. 3.55 ERA. Sean Jelly has struggled in that role, and that's why he hasn't been up all season. 7.79 ERA out of the bullpen. Scott Alexander has been good when healthy, but he's dealt with a hamstring thing. Luke Jackson has been good when healthy, but he's dealt with a low back strain, although he could be close to coming back. He is close to coming back. Ryan Walker, opener role largely, has a 2.20 ERA when not being used as an opener, and his kind of emergence has been a significant story. But Sean Manaea is kind of the guy that stands out the most as this bulk guy out of the bullpen because, like I said, he struggled so much in the rotation, but in the bullpen, he's just kind of put up different numbers. The ERA, this is kind of an Alex Cobb of last year's situation. The ERA is 4.15, but the peripheral numbers looking so much better than that. And so we're going to do a little bit of a dive into Sean Manaea and what those peripheral numbers look like and why he's just been a different guy out of the bullpen. Does that mean he should be in the rotation? Because Farhan Zaidi has said he's hopeful that they have more of a traditional starting rotation in the second half of the season. Is Manaea deserving of it? And do the Giants need to make a trade? We'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, this episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. The summer heat has settled in. I'm sweating right now. And you want a pair of shorts that impresses while feeling great. That's where Bird Dogs comes in. Bird Dogs make you look good. They are stretch khaki shorts designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look. They fit like a dream. Bird Dogs invented cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches so you can get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. They also use anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. You can seriously go from the couch to the golf course to a night out, all with the same pair of Bird Dogs on. These are the most comfortable shorts I have ever owned. Go to birddogs.com/lockedon or use promo code LOCKEDON for a free Yeti-style tumbler, just like this one if you're watching on YouTube, with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedon or promo code LOCKEDON for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your Bird Dogs off, we promise you. All right, here we go. We are going to discuss Manaea in a little bit more detail because I think he's the most interesting guy who's in this kind of hybrid role, although he has been used like exclusively out of the pen for a while now. Why is that? Should they put him back in the rotation? Thanks again for making Locked on Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers on Monday, breaking down a 3-game series in Pittsburgh where the Giants kind of surprisingly to me are going to go with Stripling to start out, and then Alex Cobb in the second game, and then TBD in the third game. So right away, like, where's Logan Webb? Where is he? When are they going to use him? So yeah, the Giants play the Pirates tonight at 4:05 Pacific. You can catch every pitch of the Giants' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Giants. Sean Manaea, like I said, most interesting guy for me because out of that bullpen, he has a 4.15 ERA, but a 2.82 fielding independent pitching, a 3.26 expected fielding independent pitching, 14 games, 34 and 2/3 innings. And yeah, so this, like I said, it's kind of like an Alex Cobb from last year's situation where the ERA doesn't really match up with the peripheral numbers. And how does he get to those kind of, why do the expected numbers kind of look better for Sean Manaea? Well, look no further than the fact that he has a strikeout rate during that time, out of the bullpen, of 31%. League average is going to be around like 22, 23%, and he's at 31. Walk rate is just 6.3%, which is good. It's very good. It's roughly the same as, I don't want to necessarily, it's like the same as Tyler Rogers approximately. And yeah, it's been good. And then there's a number called Sierra that we can look at that is, I actually don't know exactly what goes into this number, but it's another, I think it looks at the quality of the opponent as well. And that number it's an ERA predictor as well. And it's 2.84. And so that 4.15 ERA looks like the outlier for Sean Manaea. And so what he's been is like a dominant kind of pitcher out of the bullpen. And the way that he's done it is with like becoming a power pitcher, elevated four-seam fastballs, mixing in that slider and changeup as well. And I've really liked what I've seen from him in that role. And so I do wonder if the Giants are hoping to have more of a traditional 5-man rotation moving forward. Why hasn't Sean Manaea been used out of the rotation? Why do they continue to use him out of the bullpen? And the answer is, I don't know. And it's interesting with Sean Manaea and Ross Stripling having this opt-out. Both, they have the same contract, 2-year, $25 million. This is year one, and they can both opt out and re-enter the market after the season. And I'm sure that both would like to be used out of the rotation to kind of build their value more. You have more value as a good starter than as a good reliever. And I don't know. It kind of reminds me of Drew Pomeranz, right? This was a guy who the Giants were using in the rotation in 2019, and he wasn't good in the starting rotation. They moved him to the bullpen, and he made like 2-3 appearances out of the bullpen, and he was so good. And then they traded him and got Mauricio Dubon. And Sean Manaea is kind of similarly looking like a different guy out of that bullpen, and also just kind of looking like a different guy than he's been in his whole career. And so just watching him moving forward in the second half, does he get another chance? Like if he could just pitch like this out of the rotation, maybe he won't be able to give you 6-7 innings. Like maybe he gets tired sooner. Like he needs to expend more energy to be able to pitch that way. And so it works in like 2-3 innings, but it wouldn't work in 5, 6, 7 innings. That's a possibility, but he seems to have that good carry on the four-seam fast. He's just kind of a different guy than he's been in his whole career. And so to me, that's interesting. But the pitching plan to start the second half, they go with Ross Stripling. And I just have to say, Ross Stripling made a start, I think it was Sunday Night Baseball in New York against the Mets, and he looked really good. And I was not upset, but I thought they should have kept going with him. Instead, they went to Alex Wood. But I still believe in Ross Stripling's ability to be a good pitcher. He was just spotting everything. That's the whole name of his game, is good command. And when he has it, he's tough. When he's dotting corners, he's tough. And so we'll see if he can do that today. We'll also see if Sean Manaea can work his way back into the rotation. And we're going to see, if Alex Wood and Anthony DeSclafani can get back into that rotation as well. They've got a lot of options. Tristan Beck is also deserving of perhaps a shot at some point in the rotation. Keaton Wynn, I think we'll see him again. And then you've got Kyle Harrison, who Farhan Zaidi said is going to factor into that major league team at some point in the second half. He recently had a moderate hamstring strain. So it's going to be a little bit of time before he gets back to pitching, but he's another guy to expect at some point to debut. So all of that said, I think they could certainly use like another surefire starter, but they also have so much depth that I think certain guys will probably emerge at some point. But, getting a Marcus Stroman, or my goodness, if Shohei Ohtani were to become available and could anchor your lineup and your starting rotation, that's something to dream on for sure. But basically, I expect, there's a lot of baseball left, and certain guys like Manaea, if he just continues to do what he's done, I could see him getting back into that rotation and being effective. And then also just continuing to see some of the young guys. And Carson Whisenhunt in the minor leagues is someone to definitely pay attention to as a possibility. Like I wouldn't rule out certain, Mason Black just got promoted to AAA, and Whisenhunt probably isn't far behind. And so, yeah, youth, a possibility, more youth. Like we've already seen a ton of youth this year, largely on the position player side, but I think we could also see it in that starting rotation in the second half. But we could also see a trade for a frontline guy. Zaidi has said it's either frontline or nothing. They don't need more depth. They need, if anything, frontline starting pitching, because you're not just worried about making the playoffs. You're worried about having a playoff rotation that can compete. And I think with Webb and Cobb and whoever emerges as the other best options, plus having the bullpen that they have, they would have a shot in a postseason series. Webb is no slouch, and and neither is Cobb, and neither is Doval, and they have so many options that I think they could figure out who are the best and work with it that way. They are going to be a little unorthodox, but it's largely worked. They're like 11-4 in bullpen games or something, 11-3. They've got a good record in these bullpen games, but Zaidi has said they kind of want to be more traditional, actually, and they just want people to emerge. But hasn't Sean Manaea emerged? I'm a little confused on that. So we'll have to wait and see, and it gets started tonight with the second half of the season coming, and I'm really excited. Anyway, once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot, so thanks in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again on Monday. Enjoy the first series of the second half. I can't wait. So thanks again for listening. You are now Locked on Giants.